BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Martin Dowden, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, all the news, views and analysis you need on Thursday, the 4th of September. The question today is, will a new campaign bring a new dawn for Scotland?
I think we've got a good chance. I think we've got good players, good individual players, and we just have to bond as a team, and everyone, we need to stick together, and hopefully we can get the job done.
We assess the state Scotland are in as we head towards our date with destiny in Denmark. And he didn't last long on Sportsound.
Tony Docherty's back in football as the new Ross County manager. The Staggies chief executive Stephen Ferguson says the capture of the former Dundee boss marks the start of an exciting new chapter for the club. Tony
Docherty returns to the dugout at Ross County. And how will the new boys fit in?
Here's McGinn, pulls it back for Armstrong! Goal! That's more like it! Stuart Armstrong fires the ball into the bottom left corner!
How will the likes of Stuart Armstrong fare in the Scottish Premiership?
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Our guests today are Mark Atkinson, the Scotsman sports editor, and Robbie Neilson, the former Hearts and Dundee United manager and the proud holder of one Scotland cap. Robbie, it's one more than we've got, so well done on that.
It's actually two. It's my first and last one, to be honest with you.
I thought we had got an inaccurate number there, but yes, right, very good. You caught me in the hop there. Let's kick off. Scotland one day out from what could be an absolutely vital match in Scotland's qualification and hopes. Stephen Naismith said Scotland definitely have what it takes to qualify for the World Cup. Robbie, we'll start with you. Do we?
I think we do, yeah. I think we've got a good squad. And it's for me, the biggest problem, or biggest issue for Steve is what formation we play and who we pick. I think obviously the goalkeeping situation is difficult. I don't think we've got a true world-class one, but everywhere else across the pitch, I think we're a strong team. So, yeah, definitely.
How do you see it, Mark, going into this?
Certainly on paper, the squad's there to compete. It's going to be a very tough group. I think we know that. But I look at some of the players and what they're doing right now on the continent and down in the EPL, and there's no reason why we shouldn't believe that we can be at the World Cup next year.
Robbie, you touched on the goalkeeper situation there. It's a tricky one, isn't it, given the standard that we've had for so long and a number of guys at that standard. What would you be looking for at this stage if you were Steve Clarke in that position?
It's probably, we've had some world-class goalkeepers over the last couple of years with McGregor and Craig Gordon, and it's probably been to the detriment of the guys that are coming through because they've had to wait and they've not got opportunities. But it's a tough one. Ultimately, you just want somebody, I know it sounds crazy, but keeps the ball at the net and it gives a bit of confidence to the back line. So I think probably Steve might be looking at a little bit of just consistency and who's playing regularly with the first team, which again is difficult as well. So, that's why Steve's the head coach here. He's got to make that decision, and I'm sure he'll watch in training. He'll probably try and see the relationship that's getting built with each keeper, with his preferred defensive line, and then try and make a decision from there. But yeah, that's probably the biggest one he's got to make.
Yeah, Mark, is that position concerning you going into this qualification campaign?
Yeah, it is. It sounds terrible to say that you're disappointed that a goalkeeper signs for an EPL club, but when Angus Gunn signed for Nottingham Forest, my heart sank because it means that he's not going to play every week. They've got a really good goalkeeper in Matt Seltz, and it means he's number 2. And Angus didn't play as many games as he wanted to last year either because of injury. I think he is the number 1 goalkeeper when I look at the 3 that are there. Nothing against Liam Kelly or Xander Clark, but Xander I don't think has had a great start to the season. He's again a goalkeeper that hasn't played an awful lot of football in the past year, just given where he was at Hearts prior to Craig Gordon's injury. And then Liam Kelly, who ended the season as Rangers number 1, is now back behind Jack Butland. So you can pick out problems with all 3, but I think Angus Gunn will be the number 1 goalkeeper because I think Steve Clarke has shown in the past that he sees him as a long-term option there. It's just the fact he's not played very much that does concern me. We've had an issue with goalkeepers for a while now. We haven't got enough playing at a high level regularly. That was shown in the summer with Kieran Slicker. And we're just praying that somebody comes through, but it doesn't seem that there's much of a sort of talent flow at the moment. But hopefully Angus Gunn can come in sharp. I know he's desperate to play for Scotland. He enjoys being part of the camp. And I think he'll be the one that starts tomorrow in Copenhagen.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. But Robbie, I guess the balance here is, if you go for experience, you're denying someone else the shot at gaining experience, and that sort of adds to the problem as well in a way.
Yes, as ultimately the head coach has to win games, but also has to try and look at developing for the future. So, but we've had Craig Gordon for a number of years. We've had McGregor prior to that, so it's been difficult to get these guys in, and also a lot of them, like Mark said, they're not getting first team action either, which is probably the biggest learning curve for all the young goalkeepers coming through. So, the hope is that one of these guys takes the baton and takes us forward and becomes established number one, and in the background we can start to develop some of the younger ones that are coming through.
Stephen A. Smith the other day was talking about the togetherness in the squad. But I think most people recognise that there is a high degree of that, but does it feel like to you that we need a bit more than that for this campaign?
Yes, we will do. We have to remember that we're playing against two really, really good countries in Denmark and Greece. And then you've got the kind of awkward assignment against Belarus, where I think every other team will be thinking we have to take 6 points from this. It's an ultra-competitive group. There's very little wriggle room. This qualification campaign is played over 3 months, which is very rare for a World Cup qualification campaign. In the past, if you maybe didn't start particularly well, you had more time to bring in different players and basically more wriggle room. But I think Scotland, they need to hit the ground running really quickly. In that sense, togetherness helps because they all know each other really well. There's continuity there. But ultimately, we're going to have to be really strong at the back, something that I think Scotland have struggled with recently. And the other problem is that up front, we don't have that veritable world-class number 9. We've got some good options there. But I think when you look at the Danes and the Greeks, they've got probably more firepower than we do. So we're going to have to be really resolute. We're going to have to stick together. We're going to have to be very organised. And then when chances come, we have to take them. So the Scotland team's going to have to be at the peak of its powers to get to the World Cup. There's no question about that.
Robbie, do you expect to see very much a Steve Clarke Scotland that we've seen before, i.e. nothing dramatically different, i.e. not like going gung-ho away to Denmark?
Yeah, I think it's sensible as well, as Mark said, that Denmark are a world-class team. They've got some good players in it, but I think that when you look at the makeup of our squad, we've got your Hickey's coming back in, you've got Tierney's, Robertson's. I think one of the problems we've had over the last few years is fitting these quality defenders into the team. And then midfield-wise, we're super strong. And again, that striker department is the problem we really have, probably, out with the goalkeeper, and we don't have world-class players in that top end, in my opinion. So, do you go a stronger base, and try and almost grind out the win, or do you open up and play less of your good players at the back and more of your so-called lesser players up front? So I think we'll see, get back to it, more of a 3-5-2, potentially a 3-4-3, but really it becomes a 5-4-1, to be honest.
Don't talk about tactics and formations at this time of the day, Robbie. Come on, it hurts my head. What we do have, Mark, is a group here that are experienced in qualifying now, not for the World Cup, but for the Euros, obviously, back-to-back Euros. That's massive, isn't it, to know that the core of the group have been there and done it? I
think muscle memory is a big thing in football. If you've done something before, it gives you confidence. You understand how to get it done. And Ryan Christie spoke about that earlier in the week, about how this group's been through a lot together, and that they have this ultimate goal of getting to the World Cup. They also have the pain of losing to Ukraine in the playoff last time around, which I think really fuels a lot of these players, because they felt they had a great chance to A, beat Ukraine, and then probably B, beat Wales in the final playoff round. There's a sense of what could have been for Scotland. And I think that will also act as real ammunition going forward for Scotland. Experience is really important in international football. The more you play it, the more you understand the short turnaround, the more you understand the head coach as well, and Steve Clarke, having been under his wing for so many years. That really does help. And I think we've seen that in the last year. Although we dropped out of Nations League Group A, we played against some really good teams. And I thought we did ourselves pretty proud against all of them. We competed really well, and that gives you a really good shot at this. I think that's what I cling on to when I talk about Scotland getting to a World Cup. I've seen so many teams throughout the passage of time getting through to World Cups by being well organised, well drilled, and taking their chances when they come along. And we're going to need that in Denmark, because I do think that we've got a really difficult first game. I would have loved this to be at Hampden, or indeed playing Belarus at Hampden. I think going to the Parkin on opening night is as hard as it gets for the Scotland team.
Yeah, I was going to pick up on that, Robbie. Do you think it's the ideal scenario to be going firstly away to Denmark? It's probably the toughest game we're going to have. Or, do you see it as a real opportunity to start on a real high?
I think I can see both sides of it, to be honest. But yes, ideally you get a home game within that, and probably one that you're going to pick up 3 points. But I think going away to Copenhagen gives everyone a real focus for the start of it, and we can start. If we get the 3 points there, then it's a massive start to the campaign for us. So, I think everyone looking from the outside, out with Scotland, is probably looking at it and saying it's a home win. So potentially not as much pressure on the players. We go there, Denmark will have to win the game. They'll be seeing it as a game that they have to open up and try and win. So can we go there, stifle the crowd a wee bit and pick up 3 points? So I think if any game is made for Steve Clarke management and the way he gets his team set up, I think this is it.
Well, it's going to be fascinating as usual, and it probably will bring a lot of anguish and turmoil this campaign, like every other one we go through, but we'll leave Scotland there for now. Now, Ross County have a new manager as Tony Docherty returns to the front lines of management. Mark, I'll start with you on this one. Do you think this is a good fit for Tony Docherty and a good fit for Ross County?
Yeah, I think it is. I think Ross County, when they decided to part company with Don Cowie, they had to really go down the route of a slightly more experienced head coach. Not a great number out there at the moment, and Tony obviously did on paper, I thought, a pretty good job at Dundee. I think he suffered from second season syndrome a little bit, whereby he got Dundee into a position where they were above their station. And then when they went to the relegation battle last season, I thought he did actually quite well to escape that. And they made the change. I'm glad to see him back in management so quickly. I think when you're Ross County in the Championship, you need a head coach that's going to play attacking football, that's going to not be scared to have a go at teams. And we've seen Tony Docherty's teams, Dundee team, do that in the Premiership. So I think at Ross County, where you've got probably one of the best squads in the league, that really should marry together quite well. Ross County have only got 2 points at the moment in the Championship. They're already 8 off St Johnstone, who came down with them. There's also very little time for Ross County to acclimatise to a new head coach. So Tony coming in, he'll know all those players really well. It's a good Scottish core there. And they've got, in my opinion, the best player in the league in Rowan Hale, the Northern Irish striker, who I'm really surprised is still at County. If you can get the ball into him, he will score goals at that level. And I think Tony Docherty will find a way to do that. He's worked with Simon Murray in the past. So yeah, I think they on paper it looks really good. Like all management appointments, there's always an element of risk. You can never say for sure it's going to work out. But I think that's the best that Ross County could have done given the circumstances.
Robbie, I think there was a consensus that most people felt, Tony was a little bit harshly treated by Dundee, certainly the manner of his exit from the club. What does a spell on the sidelines do for a manager? Because most have one at some point. What does it give you the time to maybe do and grow as a manager when you have that period that you can reflect on everything?
Yeah, I think you have that initial kind of shock of losing the job, but after that you get an opportunity to kind of sit back and reflect on what you did and look at the, more of a kind of helicopter look of the whole season that you've had, or the 2 or 3 seasons, because when you're in it and you're Saturday to Saturday, it becomes quite difficult to take a step out a little bit and really see the bigger picture of it. So I think, certainly myself, and I'm sure Tony the same, having spoken to him, you get that wee period where you can sit out, have a look, maybe change a few things, how you trained, how you maybe dealt with the players, how you dealt with the ownership, and then come back hopefully a better head coach.
I think, Mark, one of the interesting things about going to Ross County or Inverness, and I went to that area for maybe 3-4 years in my career, is the geography. A lot of people talk about, recruitment and how difficult it can be to bring players in, given where it is. Do you think that will be a challenge and something that Tony might have to get used to, albeit, he was up in Aberdeen before being in Dundee?
I think when it comes to the transfer window in January, yeah, that could be an issue, but Ross County normally make up for that Roy McGregor's been very generous, I think, with his budgets to Ross County managers over the years to try and make sure that they aren't hindered by geography. You can argue the flip side as well, Martin. You can say actually Dingwall's a lovely part of the world to be in, and you can try and sell it that way too. I know some players that have gone up there and have really loved being in the Highlands. It's getting better connected as well, the airport, etc. So that issue, there are ways around it. In the very short term, he can't worry about the transfer window. He can maybe bring in a free agent or two if the budget's there. But Ross County have spent big in the summer. They've got a squad that has got a lot of players that have played in the Premiership or who were playing in the Premiership last year. And I think the reason why, sadly, Don Cowie lost his job is because that squad's been built to be top of the league. I think the feeling at the Ross County hierarchy is we've got a squad here that really should be at very least second in the table, and I think Tony will have to work with a lot of what's already there. I don't think that'll bother him though. I think he'll look at that squad and go, I do have enough here. I think the problem Ross County had is they went down under such a cloud. The playoffs are a horrible way to go down. It doesn't help you at all. There's no momentum whatsoever. And I think the club was always in a difficult spot from the moment it lost to Livingston. And now Tony coming in, he's got a real opportunity to reinvigorate the place. He's a positive character. He wants his teams to play nice football.
The dust has settled on the transfer window. Let's have a final assessment of how the late arrivals will settle in. Brendan Rodgers saying that Kelechi Iheanacho will make a big contribution to the club. Robbie, what do you make of that signing?
Obviously, Brendan's worked with him before, hasn't he? So he knows the player, he knows what he's bringing in, knows the character. It seemed to me that, I think right through the transfer window, Celtic were waiting to see whether they qualified for the Champions League before they went and spent, whether it was spending high or spending low. Obviously, they didn't make the Champions League group stages, and it looks to me as if they're spending low. I think when you look at what's happening at the other side of the city, the money that's getting spent there's definitely pressure now getting put on Celtic. I think at the start of the season, I'd have said it was probably going to be a one-horse race. Now I think it's potentially a 2, maybe even a 3 if you look at what Hearts are doing.
Yeah, a lot of people are starting to actually look at Hearts and maybe beyond that, Hibs as well. Mark, do you see this being more of a title race given what Celtic have done in that window?
I think Celtic have opened the door to the rest of the pack, if you wished, because of their recruitment. What Celtic can do is if they eventually learn from their mistakes, as Brendan Rodgers puts it, in the recruitment process, they can pull away in January if need be. They've got the money to do it. I think Rangers' transfer business, they've spent big, but they've also spent big on some players that I think possibly don't justify the fee. I struggle to see how Yusuf Chermiti is £8 million in the current Scottish market. They talk about potential. That's a lot of money to spend on potential. I think Hearts and Hibs will be buoyed by the transfer business of the Old Firm because it does give them a slight chance. Hearts, there's no secret about the ambition there. I think Tony Bloom said that there was a chance of splitting the Old Firm this season. Some people might say that he was prophetic with that, given what's happened in the past couple of weeks. They've started the season well, although I still think there's room for improvement at Tynecastle. They've taken advantage of quite a kind start to the season fixture list-wise. I think both Edinburgh clubs have recruited well, and that gives them a better chance of getting closer. But history tells us, and Robbie will know just as well as anyone else, how difficult it is to compete with the Old Firm ultimately. They still have enormous resource. They still have a very strong squad by Scottish football standards. You could maybe eat into the gap, but can you bridge it completely? I think it'd be such a big ask.
Yeah, Robbie, you've got experience of trying to do just that. Do you think it's a bridge too far?
I think it's extremely difficult. I think, so Tony Bloom's come in and said he wants to challenge, he wants to win the league, but I think that's probably 3, 4, 5 years down the line. I think one of the biggest issues you have outside Hearts is probably Aberdeen and Hibs having the European campaigns as well, which makes it extremely difficult, to compete at all because of the size of your squad. And also, as Mark touched on, when it gets to January, if teams are within 5, 6, 8 points, Celtic, and especially Celtic and potential Rangers, have the chance to go and spend 10, 15, 20 million, and it just takes them away. So I think if we're going to see a real challenge, I don't think it will be this year. I don't think it will be next. I think it can potentially be 3 or 4 years down the line once that depth of squad has been built that's needed.
Just on Rangers, Robbie, as well, Mark touched on their recruitment. What do you make of it? Because the sporting director, Kevin Thelwell, was saying that, well, he was claiming they've had a £20 million net spend. Do you see value in what they've brought in?
It's potential that they've brought in. They've spent money on potential, but the difficulty you have nowadays in the market, if you want to buy experienced, good players, you're not getting them for 4 million, not getting them for 8 million. You're having to spend 20, 30, 40 million, which both Old Firm teams don't have. So it's now becoming down for both of them. It's how good is the recruitment department and bringing in potential around about the probably 3 to 10 million pound mark, because that's the market we're in. We're not going out. I think the highest spend previously was Torrey Andy Fro, come from Chelsea, experienced player, but that was years ago. That was what 12 million bought you. Nowadays, if you're fishing in at 5 and 6 million, which is still a lot of money, you're not going to get experienced players. You have to go into the potential market, and it comes down to the recruitment. So time will tell.
Time will tell. You never know. We might actually stop talking about this transfer window in the coming days, but I suspect it might roll on a little bit longer. Just finally, all our heads are going to turn towards Denmark. Give us a prediction, Mark.
Oh, I feel terrible saying this. I feel like I'm negative every time I come on here about Scottish football, which is awful. But I think Denmark will win 2-1, and that actually might not be the worst result in the world, given head-to-head record, etc.
Won't be a great one either, to be fair, Mark. But Robbie, have you ever seen a Scottish journalist being negative?
Yeah, it's one of a kind, Mark. One of a kind.
And how do you see the Denmark game going?
I'm going to go. It's going to be 0-0 until the 92nd minute, and then Ben Doak's going to score.
Ben Gannon Doak. Come on.
I noticed that Ben Gannon Doak, yes.
All right,
Bowie,
nice one.
Bowie, I'd love to see Bowie getting an opportunity as well. One of the young ones. So, yes, we'll take a wee 1-0 and up the road.
I love it.
I'll go with Robbie's prediction. That's fine, Robbie. Delighted with that.
Are you taking that? Yeah. It's typical journalist, just changing just like that. Oh, yeah, I agree with Robbie. No worries.
Leopard never changes its spot.
Look, that's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Mark Atkinson and Robbie Neilson, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on your phone. Thank you very much for listening.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the sorter obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out a back line. Somebody's washing,
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is,
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.